Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 11, text number 13. Very nice. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being out there, whoever's out there. I'm kind of out there. My tilak wore off today. Okay, Sri Ramadas Ada Gadadhara Dasa. Sri Ramadas Ada Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Goshanira Bhakta Rahe Tanra Pasha. Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Gosamira Bhakta Rahe Tandra Pasha. Shri Ramananda Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Goshanira Bhakta Rahe Tandra Pasha. Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Goshanira Bhakta Rahe Tandra Pasha. Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Goshanira Bhakta Rahe Tandra Pasha. Chaitanya Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Goshanira Bhakta. Ladies? Anyone else?
Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa.
Shri Ramadasa Gadadhara Dasa. Chaitanya Goshanira Bhakta Rahe Tandra Pasha. Shri Ramadasa. Shri Ramadas. Ada and Gadadhara Das. Gadadhara Das. Chaitanya Goshanira of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhakta devotees. Rahe stay. Tandra Pasha with him. Translation. Two devotees of Lord Chaitanya named Sri Ramadas and Gadadhara Das always lived with Sri Virabhadra Goswami. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Sri Ramadas, later known as Abhiram Thakur, was one of the 12 Gopas, or cowherd boyfriends of Sri Nityodita Prabhu, The Gaur Ganotesh Deepika. What does Deepika mean? What does deep mean?
Light.
The light, right? So Gaur Ganodesh Deepika is a book that is shining the light on the identity of Lord Chaitanya's associates. Deepika. It's actually deeps. The deeps that we offer, right? So, in that book, it states that Sri Ramadas was formerly Sridham. Sridham, as we know, is the brother of Srimati Radharani. So that was his former life, this Abhiram. He was Sridhar. How amazing it is. In the Bhakti Ratnakara, which is another book in the Chaitanya line, fourth wave. I've never read it. Have you read it?
I've got it.
You've got it.
Upstairs.
You should start reading it because it's mentioned here. I've never read it. Bhakti Ratnakar, fourth wave. There is a description of Sri Abhiram Thakur by the order of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Abhiram Thakur became a great acharya and preacher of the Chaitanya cult of devotional service. He was a very influential personality, and non-devotees were very much afraid of him. Empowered by Sri Nityananda Prabhu, he was always in ecstasy and was extremely kind to all fallen souls. However, it is said that if he offered obeisances to any stone, also says deity, any stone other than a Shalagram Shila, it would immediately fracture. Actually, it's explained in the Bhakti Ratnakar, I believe, I'm hearing from other devotees, that any deity that was not being worshipped or that was an idol, a statue or something, that he would pay obeisances. Or any stone that somebody claimed to be a shalagram, that they would claim to be a shalagram and it wasn't being worshipped properly or the devotion wasn't there, the Lord wasn't present there, and then it would simply crack into pieces. Abhiram Thakur, okay, we'll go on with the purport. Shri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhasya. I believe the Anubhasya is commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Where are you?
The next paragraph, right? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's there. You're asking where I am or where he is?
I'm just curious where are you reading because I'm lost.
Where, what?
Where are you
Are
reading?
you reading or speaking?
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, you don't see the second paragraph of the purport? It's not.
They changed.
It's not in your book?
No.
Somebody changed the books. Find them. Find them. Bring them in front of Prabhupada.
Or maybe they added to yours.
What? You don't have that there?
My next paragraph second starts 10 miles southwest.
Okay, well, this edited version actually writes where that comes from. 10 miles southwest of the Chandradanga railway station, out of the narrow gauge railway from Howrah in Calcutta to Atma, a village in the Hubli district, is a small town named Kanakula Krishna Nagar, where the temple in which Abhiram Thakur worshipped is situated. During the rainy season, when this area is inundated with water, people must go there by another line, which is now called the Southeastern Railway. On this line, there is a station named Kolagat, from which one has to go by steamer to Rani Chaka. 7.5 miles north of Rani Chaka is Kanakula. The temple where Abhiram Thakur worshipped is situated in Krishna Nagar, which is near the Kula bank of the Kana or the Dwarka Deshwara River. Therefore, this place is celebrated as Kanakula Krishna Nagar. Outside of the temple is a Bakula tree. This place is known as Siddha Bakula Kunja. It said that when Abhiram Thakur came there, he sat down under this tree, and that tree is still there. In Kanakula, Krishnanagara, there is a big fair held every year in the month of Chaitra, March and April, on the Krishna Saptami, the 7th day of the dark moon. Many hundreds and thousands of people gather for this festival. The temple where Abhiram Thakur worshipped has a very old history. The deity in the temple is known as Gopinath. There are many Sevaita families living near the temple. It is said that Abhiram Thakur also had a whip that whoever he touched with it would immediately become an elevated devotee of Krishna. Among his many disciples, Sriman Srinivasacharya was the most famous and the most dear, but it is doubtful that he was his initiated disciple. Translation again, I'll say, you please repeat. The two devotees of Lord Chaitanya, namely Sri Ramadas and Gadadhar Das, always lived with Virabhadra Goswami. Amagyan Turanasya Garanjana Shlakaya Chakshudumilitamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Snapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam. We were born in the darkness of ignorance, but our spiritual master has kindly forced open our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Therefore, we offer our most humble and respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Maum Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Prachadane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pastyacha Distadane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha Kalpatrivascha Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Abhanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.
Can you read, or maybe you would like to
The
4 verses before?
Read the 4 verses before, leading up to this, yes, because Virabhadra Goswami is introduced here. Okay, so this chapter is entitled The Expansions of Lord Nityananda, and expansions also means devotees in his line. After Nityananda Prabhu, the greatest branch is Virabhadra Goswami, who also has innumerable branches and sub-branches. It is not possible to describe them all. Although Virabhadra Goswami was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he presented himself as a great devotee. Although the Supreme Godhead is transcendental to all Vedic injunctions, he strictly followed the Vedic rituals. He is the main pillar in the hall of devotional service erected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew within himself that he acted as the Supreme Lord Vishnu, but externally he was prideless. It is by the glorious mercy of Sri Virabhadra Goswami that people all over the world now have the chance to chant the names of Chaitanya and Nityananda, Gaura Nitai. I therefore take shelter of the lotus feet of Virabhadra Goswami, so that by his mercy my great service to write Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita will be properly guided. Then today's verse. So Virabhadra Goswami, it's probably a whole different class. So these are devotees in the line. That's the important thing about this section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Prabhupada mentions it in the first paragraph of the purport. To be in the line, to be in the parampara, to be empowered, and that becomes the qualification of even somebody like Abhiram Das Thakur, who was, as explained in his previous incarnation, he was Sridham himself. But still, it's mentioned here in the purport that he became a great devotee in this Chaitanya Leela because of being ordered by Sri Nityananda Prabhu. There was an order to preach. So Krishna Shakti Vinanai Tarapravartana. It's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that unless one is empowered by Krishna cannot become a powerful preacher. Krishna Shakti Vinantar Pravartana. So what does it mean to become empowered by Krishna? Is it some magic formula? Is it being touched on the head, like when Dhruva Maharaj was touched? What does it mean to be empowered by Krishna? Well, that's what it means, actually, it's being explained here, is to be in the line. It's like the electric current. You can feel the effect of the electric current way down the line, but if the line is broken, electric current won't give any power, right? So, to be under the order of a spiritual master in disciple succession. So here it is, Abhiram Thakur. So Abhiram Thakur had these special powers that not only any deity he bowed down to would crack if it wasn't a bona fide deity, but any person that he paid his obeisances to that wasn't a pure devotee of Krishna, he would die. He would die. Wow. So people claimed they were pure devotees and he paid obeisances to them. They would not be seen any longer. So Abhiram Thakur, it's explained here that it doesn't explain here, but it's explained other places that he's connected with the temple of Gopinath. He's connected with the temple of Gopinath. How is he connected with the temple of Gopinath? Well, one time he was sleeping and he had a dream, and in that dream, Krishna came to him in the dream and said, "Hey, I'm buried over here, please rescue me." So he followed that dream. This happens to great devotees, right? Madhavendra Puri happened to Madhavendra Puri. So he uncovered that beautiful Krishna deity and established that deity in the temple. The temple is called Gopinath. And of course that Gopinath temple in Sri Khanda, it still exists. And there was a family at the time, Mukunda Sakar. He was the father. He was also a physician, and his wife. And he went out. He one time it's explained. He would go out and give his medicines to people, and so the deity was there in the house. It was kind of like in the beginning it was a house, a deity, a small temple. There's many temples in India. You'll see are small little houses. So him and his wife and his family were taking care of the deity, and he would make sure very religiously offering food and artik, and the deity was the center of the house. So one time, he had to go out on business, and he told his son, whose name was Raghunandana, he said, "Raghunandana, please, you offer." And he was a boy. You offer food to Krishna. Your mother will cook. You offer, and then when I get home, I can take the prasad. So he said, "Okay." So the boy, not knowing all the mantras or anything, just being a boy, he took the plate from the kitchen. His mother gave him, and put the plate in front of the deity, and simple, like a boy, he said, my dear Lord, please, I'm bringing you prasadam, please take." So he was sitting very, very innocently in front of the deity, and nothing happened. So he said, "My dear Lord, please, take prasad. I brought you prasad, please take." Nothing happened. "My dear Lord, please take prasad." The deity started to speak to him. "My dear boy, I have glanced at it, and from my glance I have absorbed your love, and I'm satisfied." The boy said, "This is not enough, you must eat." My father told me before he left for his business, he told me, one thing is make sure Gopinath eats. So I don't know this philosophy about glancing at food. I want you to eat. So the deity, seeing the pure love of the boy, he reciprocated and began eating all the prasadam off the plate. And the boy was so happy. He picked up the plate, he brought it to his mother. Mata, here. And mother said, Where's the maha? He said, Maha, the Lord ate it? What? Just then, knock on the door. His father came back, starving from being out all day, saying, Where is the prasad? Where's my prasad? Lord, you told me to offer food to the Lord. The Lord ate it. There's nothing left. So Mukunda had an inkling that his son was a special soul. So he told him, one thing we did not offer Gopinath yet, we still have some ladu. And he had a big ladu. He had a big ladu. He said, you can offer this to Gopinath. And he didn't say he was going to watch, but that was his plan. You offer this to Gopinath. So Mukunda Sakar, he got behind a little pillar there and he's watching his son, saying, well, what's going on? And he brought the ladu in front of the deity and he gave his prayer, my dear Lord, please eat prasadam. And the deity supposedly can't see Mukunda because he's hiding from the deity. But Mukunda's watching the whole thing, and Gopinath takes the ladu and starts eating it. He's chewing on it. And he's eating this ladu, and then Mukunda Sakar was so amazed, he came out of the pillar and said, Haribo, Haribo! And as soon as he said that, deity stopped eating, just became a deity again. Just became in his deity form. So the ladus was half eaten, it was on the plate. Came back as prasad. Now, sometimes it is said by the local villagers there that ladu, that half a ladu, they have preserved it in a safe to prove that this deity was responding to the love of his devotees. And when we were on a pilgrimage with Radhanath Swami one year, we went to that temple. And at the end of the artik, the priest came out and he started distributing prasad. What was he distributing? Half ladus. Half ladus to all of us. So the boy was just a boy, but he became famous as a great devotee. He became so famous that Abhiram, who we're talking about today, he said, oh, what a pure devotee of the deity that I found. I want to go and see him and pay my obeisances to him. And when Mukunda Sakar, Raghunandan's father, found out that Ramdas, Abhiram Thakur, was going to come and have darshan with his son, he was not happy at all. Usually he'd be happy to have association of a great devotee. He was not happy at all. He took his son and brought him outside the village and brought him to somebody's house and was hiding him there. So then, the next day, there's a knock on the door of Mukunda Sakar's house, and Mukunda answers the door, yes? I've come to see your son, Raghunandan. And he started thinking. He said, just a minute. He talked to his wife, says, if our son has even one material desire, and then when Abhiram Thakur pays obeisance to him, he will die. So let's tell him that he's out of town. which he was. He's out of town. He says out of town. We don't know when he's going to be back. He went with some friends at somebody's house outside the village. So Abhiram Thakur was actually disappointed, of course. He wanted to meet a great soul. If you ever have a chance to meet a great soul and you don't take it, then you can feel like lamentation. One time I was working in the garden crew in 1976. And Tapa Poonj was preaching to me. He was in charge. He was saying, this is the most important service to please Srila Prabhupada, so much so that we should just really get into it. Then I heard there was a van leaving to go see Srila Prabhupada. in Philadelphia or New York, Rath Yatra. Tapa Poonj says, this Prabhupada really would be more happy if you were just here pulling weeds in this garden. So I was a young devotee. I didn't have it in me to argue with my authority. But to this day, I lament that I did not hop in that van and go see Prabhupada. So you have a chance to meet a great soul, you should become very enthusiastic. So he was thinking like that. Abhiram Thakur said, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to meet this boy who was a pure devotee. He just went into a sacred, a secluded place in the forest and sat down, started chanting Hare Krishna. And when the word got back to Raghunandana that there was a great devotee, there's a great devotee in town, the name Abhiram Thakur. He snuck out of the house that his parents had put him in, outside the village, and he made his way to that secluded place in the forest to have darshan with this Abhiram Thakur. So when he went to see Abhiram Thakur, and he was effulgent because he was empowered by Lord Nityananda, he paid his obeisances to him, and Abhiram Thakur said, so who are you? What is your name? I am Raghunanda. And he has heard it as soon as he heard the name Raghunanda. He said, this is the devotee that I want to meet. So he paid his obeisances, and at that moment when he paid his obeisances, nothing happened. He did not die because he was a pure devotee. And when they realized that they were connected with their love of Krishna, they began embracing like anything. And in their embrace, you embrace somebody, and then they started dancing, and they were dancing together, and they were dancing so ecstatically that the anklet of Raghunandana, it flew off. It flew off into the sky, and it went 7 miles and landed in a lake, a pond, a kunda. It landed in the kunda. Is he mentioning the kunda? Anyway, that lake is still existing. I think it's called here. I can't have it. But anyway, that lake is still existing. That based on that pastime, it's still named there. And many Gaudiya Vaishnavas go to Sri Khanda and take the water from that lake. We were also there on that pilgrimage. We went to that spot. So this is this is Abhiram Thakur, and so what else? He had a whip. So I was thinking, we sing every day. He has a whip called Jai Mangala, and anybody who was whipped with that whip became ecstatic. So there's a story, because Prabhupada mentions here about Srinivasacharya. So I heard it on the lecture, so I'm not sure where the source is, but I heard that this Abhiram came and met Srinivasacharya, and he started whipping him. and the devotees were saying, "Stop whipping him! You're giving him so much pain!" And Srinivasacharya said, "No, it's not pain, it's prem. I'm getting so much prem." He started dancing in ecstasy. Prem or pain. I don't know if that's true story, but it illustrates the point that when the devotee touches something, it becomes saturated with their Shakti, with their devotion. There's a devotee from Australia, I think his name is Gaur Gopal. One day Srila Prabhupada came to Australia, the first time Srila Prabhupada came to Australia, and Gaur Gopal, he was a teenager at the time, he saw Prabhupada and he put his hands together and Prabhupada took his cane and touched him on the head with the cane. And then he walked away. All the devotees came up to him and says, "What was it like? What did it feel like to be touched by Prabhupada's cane?" So this is the point I'm trying to make here, is that the paraphernalia of a devotee, or the paraphernalia of the Lord, is saturated with the Lord's potency. And that's why, for instance, at Srila Prabhupada's palace, we have Prabhupada's cane, we have Prabhupada's dictaphone, we have Prabhupada's shoes. That's why Varshana Maharaj explains that these things, it's part of the samadhi of Srila Prabhupada, the Smriti samadhi. Things help devotee remember Prabhupada. And they're saturated with potency. That's why devotees collect them. And they collect things. There's a story of Jamuna in the early days. Prabhupada's sitting in the airport getting ready to go somewhere. And Prabhupada has cane with him. And a piece of the cane was broken. So Prabhupada instructed his servant, take that and throw it in the garbage. It's like a chip of the cane or whatever. And Jamuna, watching it. She's watching what the servant is doing. She's heard Prabhupada's instruction to the servant. And so as soon as she got an opportunity, what did she do? She went to the garbage can and she got that piece of cane. And she kept that piece of cane and worshipped that piece of cane because it reminded her Prabhupada's potency. So when we give tours at the palace, sometimes we tell the stories of Prabhupada's paraphernalia, right? There's the bell in there that Prabhupada...
The drum.
Yeah, the drum. Yeah, I didn't mention the drum. The drum, the first kirtan. The drum, the bell, the dictaphone, the shoes. We tell those stories. How that drum was that drum had so much potency. That was a bongo drum, supposedly, right? That's called a bongo drum. It means it was a one-headed bongo drum. Because Prabhupada didn't have he didn't come with a mridanga and kartals. He just came with the books. And somebody gave him that drum. And there's a picture of Brahmananda and Hayagriva, or Chutananda, Brahmananda and Chutananda dancing in 26 at the park, at Tompkins Square Park. Prabhupada is playing that drum. So, if you don't know anything about it, it's just a drum. So in 1975, I was living at Old Vrindavan Farm. And we had that drum there. There was no palace at the time. We had that drum on the Vyasasan of Prabhupada. It was like at the feet of at the base of the Vyasasan. And no one told me about it or anything. I didn't know anything. It's the drum. And sometimes the mridanga would break and somebody would start playing that drum so they have some beat, Nobody told me anything about it. One day, Brahmananda Swami came up to Old Vrindavan. He walked the 2 miles up there. And the brahmacharis were sitting in the temple. And he came in. And he started going, that's it, that's it. And everyone's wondering, what the heck is he talking about? That's it, that's it. Nobody knows what he's talking about. He falls down on the ground. He starts weeping. And he crawls up to that drum and goes, this is the drum that made me dance in the first kirtan in America. Whoa. The potency of Prabhupada's remnants, the potency of the Lord's remnants. Every day we sing the Damodarastic prayer this month, the 8th prayer. What is it? Namaste tu damne, spurat dipti damne. What's he talking about? This is Satyavat Muni, a great devotee of Krishna. What is he offering his obeisances to on that last concluding prayer? I'm offering my obeisances to the rope. I'm offering my obeisance to the rope. That is the, what is it? That's the source of the effulgence of the Lord, you know. Sometimes it's explained that he's paying obeisances to that golden rope. What does that golden rope represent? The rope that is binding Krishna. Huh? The love of Srimati Radharani, which he also mentions in that last prayer. Golden, yes, the golden glow of Srimati Radharani. So, so the paraphernalia, he's offering, so it's worshipable, that's the point. The whip of a devotee, the cane of a devotee, the rope of Mother Yashoda, or because these are worshipable objects. The other devotee mentioned here in his text, which we'll stop here in a minute, is Sri Gadadhar Das. Speaking of Sri Gadadhar Das, as explained in the Gordana Desh Dipika, he was an incarnation of the effulgence of Srimati Radharani. Now he was such a bold and fearless preacher, being also empowered by Lord Nityananda, because Lord Chaitanya was tired of the devotees coming to see him in Jagannath Puri every year. He told Lord Nityananda, no, go back to, stay in Bengal and preach, and I'll give you some devotees. So who did he give? He gave Abhiram Das Thakur, and he gave Gadadhar. Now Gadadhar Das became famous. It's amazing how these devotees are mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, or sometimes when devotees leave, we try to say something in their glorification. We come up with like one or two stories, you know? Even though they've lived their whole life as devotees. There's always one or two. So Gadadhar Das became famous. And what was his fame? In the town where he was living, there was a Qazi. This Qazi was so cruel, he would persecute, he would arrest, he would torture anybody who was a Hindu. And he got pleasure out of cutting their heads off. This was the kind of situation that was there at the time. So when Gadadhar Das became empowered by Lord Nityananda to preach, one day he came to the Qazi's house and said, Qazi, come down here right now. This is in the middle of the night. I want to tell you something. Qazi came down in the middle of the night. What's going on? I want you to chant Hare Krishna. Chant the names Hari Hari. And if you don't, I'll cut your head off. What? So the Qazi's waking up. And he sees, even though Gadadhar Das was so, fired up to preach, he was exuding just calmness and peacefulness. So when the Qazi saw him, even though he was screaming to chant, or I'll kill you, the Qazi became very pacified, and he knew who he was. He said, Gadadhar, please, it's the middle of the night. What are you doing? Knock on the door. Go home. Everything will be all right. Calm down. And Gadadhar said, no, please, I want you to chant Hari Hari now. And the Qazi said, tomorrow I'll chant Hari Hari. And I heard him chanting Hari Hari. He said, Hari, why tomorrow? You're chanting now. Continue to chant Hari Hari Hari. And this is how he preached. You know, he was very, very bold. And when the Kazi realized, yes, he had been tricked into chanting the holy name of Hare Krishna, Hari Hari, and became very happy. So these are great devotees that are empowered by Lord Nityodita. So the idea is that, and the purport here, it's explained that when the order of the Lord comes to do devotional service, one picks it up and become fearless, and become empowered to touch people's hearts. So we'll stop here because it's already almost 9. Any questions, comments on the purport of the verse or these devotees? Yes.
Yes, I was thinking,
Can you hand it?
that I was reminded of my upbringing in another religion, and their scripture was also 5,000 years old, and they had a lot of pastimes, personalities that were doing amazing things, in reference to our lives, our modern life. And so a lot of us, although we attended the place of worship, we felt, oh, those are just stories. There's no validity to those. And, giants and old 500-year-old people, So we're hearing of these amazing things, some of the things that you were saying that was within the Shastra, I don't know, Krishnadas Kaviraj Maharaj's book. So they were telling us his ankle flew 7 miles, and how this Adhiram Thakur, he's Srimati Radharani's brother, Sridham in the spiritual world, and people in general tend to disbelieve. And so, how do we keep faithful to those, hearing those things? What is it that...
There are devotees who are living today who were there during miraculous pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. A Rishabhadev, very humble, quiet devotee living down in the apartments, he was there at Hitchcock Hall in 1969 when Prabhupada went to Columbus, Ohio, and gave a lecture with Allen Ginsberg sitting on a stage. And at the end, Prabhupada led a kirtan. And 250 clean-cut college students who had never come in contact with Krishna's name or Krishna's devotee before, they started dancing ecstatically in the aisles. Last time I was in Columbus, not the last time, one of the last times I was in Columbus, we actually did Harinam to that Hitchcock Hall, and we saw the hall. It's like it's like an auditorium, so it's got like a slanted arrangement. And it's explained, Rishabhadev was explained that, the college students were jumping on the chairs, dancing in the aisles, chanting Hare Krishna. First time exposure. So that was, we don't believe it now. When we go to Columbus, we give a lecture, maybe, a couple of kids might come. This happened, and there are devotees who were there. And Prabhupada disciples are always explaining these incredible miracles that have either happened to them or happened to others. So, faith is the greatest gift. Faith is the greatest gift that we get in the association of devotees, right? Faith is something that's a very, valuable element in the devotees. Without faith, so that faith can be transferred even to non-devotees. If there's enthusiasm, if there's confidence, if there's purity. That's what preaching means. Preaching means to awaken somebody's faith in God, in God's devotees, Krishna, the pure devotee. That's what it means. Otherwise, preaching just doesn't mean giving a talk. Preaching means bringing people into the fold of devotional life by awakening their faith. And that takes a very special person. That's why we're quoting the verse. Krishna Shakti Vidanai Tar Pravartana. In order to awaken faith, one must have faith themselves and be able to distribute that. That's the beginning, right? Adao Shraddha. So that's our business. Adao Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. Before people got to associate with devotees, Sadhu Sangha, they have to have faith. So preaching means to awaken that faith somehow or other. So there's so many different ways you can do that. Book distributors, they're awakening people's faith, right? And sometimes people don't necessarily are interested in the book, but the person that gives them the book, if they're enthusiastic, if they're glowing, if they're following the principles, and they remember that exchange. They don't even know how they got the book. A lot of people, they walk away, who was that person? What happened to me? You know, I just gave $20 away, you know, and they walk down the street, and then because the devotee is saturated. The devotee who's following Krishna consciousness nicely becomes saturated to be empowered, just like these devotees were empowered. Gadadhar Das was fearless, and Abhiram was Avadut, you know, special devotee, who was able to inspire people. So, any other questions, comments?
I wanted to address what he said, what he was asking about, you know, the ankle bell going 7 miles, how do we, you know, in the Bible and in other scriptures, it says childlike faith. For a child to read something and say 7 miles, they would just think, wow. They wouldn't try to you know, they wouldn't really try to logically scrutinize, how is that possible, right? So just childlike faith, they accept 7 miles. Well, so what? You know, 100 yards or 7 miles, what's the difference, right? So they just take it childlike faith.
I'll add to the strength of the 7 miles is when devotees are in ecstasy, the strength is different. I'll just go ahead and add that in the story, the ankle bell going 7 miles, one reason is that the strength of the devotees in this is different than normal, how is it, human, you know, normal functioning humans. That's all.
That's true. Somebody who's on a spontaneous platform does things that they would never do on a planned platform. I was listening to Tripurari Swami the other day. He was giving a talk, and it flashed on me heavy because it just happened to me. And he said sometimes when he was describing how pure love is spontaneous. You don't really think about, oh, can I do this? Is this good for me? Is it, you know? And he gave the example of somebody was on CNN. They became famous. What did they do? They saw a dog drowning. They jumped off the bridge, saved the dog, and they asked him. So they asked the guy, "What were you thinking?" He says, "You know, I wasn't thinking anything. I just did it because it needed to be done. You know, out of spontaneous." So, you know, that happened to me the other day when I looked over and we're chanting the prayers to Damodar. I looked over and I see a devotee is completely she became like a human deep. You know, her whole body from her foot to the head. It was like a flame. I looked over, you know, it was like freaky. So, you know, people are saying, "Oh, did you can say it?" No, it was just like I just did whatever, you know, had to be done. So and there's stories too of mothers when the car is rolling backward and their child is playing. There's stories of mothers who've come and stopped the rolling car, you know, or lifted a car off of their child, you know, out of spontaneous love and affection or whatever. Even that happens materially, let alone, you know, spiritually, something being touched by Krishna's energy directly. So many, and that's, you know, the miracles of Prabhupada. You know, we should never take what Prabhupada accomplished for granted. Well, the other day, I think I was listening to Vaisheshika Prabhu. He was talking about writing a book, how hard it was, how hard it is to write a book, and, you know, just to get, not only just write it, but get it all right and edit it and publish it and everything. And just to think how Prabhupada was, and there was another devotee saying that, oh, the Guru Maharaj is in hibernation now because he's writing a book. You know, he can't talk to anybody. I think how Prabhupada, you know, organized the whole movement and meeting people day and at night he wrote all these books for us. You know, it's for the world. So I mean, Miracles, yes. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you for your kind attention, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.
Prabhu.